Welcome to Securing America with me, Frank Gaffney, the program that's a kind of owner's manual for protecting the country we love against all enemies, foreign and domestic, to God's glory and that of his kingdom. There is no greater enemy we face, certainly foreign, and arguably, to some extent, domestically as well, than that of the Chinese Communist Party. It has been involved in unrestricted warfare against us for decades. It has been making no secret of it, at least since May of 2019, when in the pages of the People's Daily, one of its principal propaganda outlets, it declared a people's war against the United States. A man who has been following matters involving China assiduously and with great effect for a very long time is, I'm pleased to say, one of our regulars here at Securing America. His name is Gordon Chang. He is an author of numerous important books, including The Coming Collapse of China. He is a frequent contributor to very important outlets like the Gatestone Institute and Newsweek. He is also, I'm very proud to say, one of the people that I follow closely at GordonGChang.com. Gordon, it is great to have you with us, especially at a moment such as this.
Thank you so much, Frank.
Webinar of our Committee on the Present Danger China on the subject last Thursday, and video of it is now available. I'm very pleased to be able to report at presentdangerchina.org. Was a deep dive into a pending public policy initiative. It's not getting the kind of attention otherwise that it needs, it seems to me, but hopefully this webinar and programs like this will showcase the inadvisability of the world's largest public pension fund, the US government's thrift savings plan, investing money from its participants in China, especially without making clear to them that that's what they're doing. Um, Gordon, I don't know how much you're familiar with the details of this idea, but it's a reprise of something that was tried 2 years ago. And Donald Trump, to his credit, said, no, we're not going to do it. Knowing what you know about the stock market in China, let alone what the Chinese Communist Party is up to, would you counsel American servicemen and women and other government employees, past and present for that matter, to be investing in China at this moment?
Absolutely not, Frank. This is wrong. As you point out, People's Daily, which is the most authoritative publication in China, did declare a people's war on us. And we have seen China actually implement this war by deliberately spreading coronavirus, making sure that fentanyl is sold in the United States illegally, all sorts of things that China's been doing to kill Americans. So it is just strategically and morally wrong to do this. But looking at the economics, you see a Chinese stock market that has certainly been volatile, but has been going to the downside recently, largely because people understand that the fundamentals of the Chinese economy are weak. And this is even apart from these insane COVID-19 lockdowns, which have just killed economic growth and have actually put the Chinese economy into contraction. But also, China is on the edge of a debt crisis for which it has no answers because there's too much debt, and also because of just other factors. So, China is a very poor investment right now. And in it, if that weren't enough, you have the failure of Chinese companies to actually disclose fundamental, just regular stock market information. So all of this points to the conclusion that it is absolutely wrong for the United States to put any money into China or to allow any American party to put money into China. Forget about the federal government, Frank. We should be
Yeah.
prohibiting investment into Chinese companies, full stop.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more, Gordon. But let me drill down on the question of government employees specifically, Gordon, because On the one hand, as you've said, there's the distinct possibility that these investments might be going into companies that are, yes, owned or controlled by the Chinese Communist Party, and that's all of them. But they're not reporting on their actual financial condition. So they may lose their investment. And one of the people participating in our webinar the other day was Joel Kaplan, who did lose millions of dollars in China and has not been able to get any remedies despite court rulings in his favor. Um, Secondly, Gordon, there's obviously the problem that you've alluded to as well, that you could have the obscene situation of having American military personnel putting their money into companies that are acquiring the weapons with which the People's Liberation Army intends to try to kill them.
Y- yes.
But not least, there's another consideration. I just want to ask you about this too, Gordon, knowing the Chinese as you do. It seems to me self evident that American government employees, whether they're civilians or whether they're military personnel, who have a vested interest in China might actually be compromised in terms of their service to our country. We talked about this last week, I think, with Sam Faddis about just from a security clearance point of view, that would be a consideration, let alone in terms of what might happen in practice. So, are these misplaced concerns, do you think,
No,
or are
they're
they
certainly
real?
not misplaced. I mean, we're giving all federal employees a financial interest in the success of Chinese communism, which is pledged to destroy the United States. I mean, that conflict of interest couldn't be clearer. And one thing that you touched on, China has this doctrine of civil military fusion, which means the military has access to everything that the United States, I mean, everything that nominally private companies or universities come up with. So there really is no safe Chinese company because the Chinese military can take their technology, can take their products. This is a unitary state. It's totalitarian, Frank, and that's top down. Nobody can refuse
Yes.
a request or demand from the Communist Party. So yeah, I just or demand from the Communist Party. So yeah, I just don't see that there is any that investing in.
And Gordon, one of the things that, of course, is of particular concern is that these Chinese companies, pursuant to the policy of uh, what's known as civil military fusion, are not just owned and controlled by the Chinese Communist Party, even if they're not doing specifically work on a project for the People's Liberation Army or for the CCP itself, they are subject to the orders of the party and the direction specifically to assist the party in becoming a more formidable threat to all of us. And this is, again, the sorts of thing that I think is just not being factored in, certainly by our friends on Wall Street, like Larry Fink of BlackRock, when they make this bid, and they do relentlessly, in this case, over the express direction of Donald Trump, former president now, but also, I believe, Joe Biden. In executive orders that both Trump and Biden promulgated, we saw they were, in fact, being directed, among other American investors, not to invest particularly in Chinese companies that threaten our national security and that actually may be involved as well in human rights abuses or surveillance state apparatus operations. And that, again, covers an awful lot of them, especially if the Chinese direct, pursuant to this civil military fusion concept, that they will do so. We're going to take a brief break. We'll be right back with more with Gordon Chang. We're going to talk about the worst moment in history, possibly now in the offing as a result of the relationship between the Russians and the Chinese. We'll talk about that and more with Gordon right after this.